Okay, well, good morning, 8th and ninth grade in our Algebra I class. We are on a new lesson today. We are on 10.5, and this is called, again, guess what? Factoring. Yay! This time we're factoring completely. This is on page 425. Let me just say this. You will want to follow along. So if you're not at page 425, I would pause the video until you get there, okay? So here we go. Factoring completely. So our example here is 5ax to the fifth minus 5ax y to the fourth. Okay, now the key part about factoring, the first step, number one in factoring is always to take out what these have in common. Always take out what they have in common, okay? Now, what do they both have? They both have a 5. So I know I'm going to be able to take a 5 out. They both have at least one a, so I know I can take the a out. And they both have at least one x, so I can take the x out. So that is step one, is to take that out, and I'm left with 1, right? 5 divided by 5 is 1. The a is gone, and the x now is down to the fourth, right? Because I took 1 away, and I had started with 5, so now I have 4 left. Then I come here, I divide by 5, I get, again, 1, because 5 divided by 5 is 1. The a, again, is gone and gone, just like it was there. And now the x is gone, and I'm left with y to the fourth. Now, that's fun, right? You guys know how to do that. You did that in the homework lesson. 5ax times x to the fourth minus y to the fourth. Except for we're not done yet, because this right here, x to the fourth and y to the fourth with a minus sign in the middle, is a difference of squares, which we've just done in our other homework. Okay, so if you need to pause, I'm going to erase that and write it back up here. So we got 5ax times x to the fourth minus y to the fourth. So we're not done yet. We got to take this guy and do our difference of squares. Now, how do we do that? You should remember, right? We take the square root of the first and the square root of the second. So again, this 5ax is chilling out here this whole time. And I do this. I say, what is the square root of x to the fourth? Well, that's x squared and x squared. What's the square root of y to the fourth? Well, that's y squared and y squared. Now, what does this minus sign mean? It means a difference of squares, so one is plus and one is minus. Now, even here, I'm still not done. These guys are done, but guess what I have again? Right here in the red, another difference of squares, right? This and this and this, another difference of squares. So the 5 this time, right, it still stays the same. 5ax times x squared plus y squared. Now, I have to do what is the square root of x squared, and what's the square root of y squared? Well, that's x, y, and y, and again, I have that plus sign, or that negative sign, so I have a plus and a minus. To get my final answer now circled here in the red to look like that right there, where I have x plus y and x minus y times x squared plus y squared plus the 5ax that I pulled out way long time ago at the beginning of this problem. So, basically, these problems just take a long time and continuous factoring. Okay, so let's do another one, for example. This is kind of a different one now, so if you're following along in the book, this is example number 2. And this is x to the fourth minus 9x squared plus 8. So on this kind of problem, the first thing we need to do is realize that this is not a difference of squares, right? It has our negative 9x squared in the middle, which means we have all kinds of stuff here to do, because this 8 is not, we can't take the square root of 8. So what do we do? Well, we're going to treat this as if it was just a normal x squared problem. Even though it has x to the fourth, we're just going to kind of think about it a little differently. And I'm going to say, you know what? The square root of x to the fourth is x squared. Okay? So everything else, though, is going to work the same. I'm going to say, okay, what times what is 8? That will get me to a 9, right? I need to get to this negative 9 in the middle. So I do negative 1 times negative 8. That's going to be negative 9 when I add them together. So I know I need negative 8 and negative 1. Okay, and I can check that by multiplying these out, right? I get x to the fourth minus 8x squared minus x squared plus 8. And look, when that combines, that's exactly what I had up here. So I'm going to erase this for a second. So I know I did it right, but I'm not done yet because we're not factored completely, because we have, again, a difference of squares. So you can see here, X minus 8 is not a difference of squares because 8 doesn't have a perfect square. But this one right here, I can take the square root of both of those, and I have a negative sign in the middle. So I can rewrite that x minus 1 and x plus 1. And then I can rewrite this one, x squared minus 8. And so there is my final answer. Okay, so I solved it by using the original technique, but then when I got to this step, I used the difference of squares. Okay, if you need to pause it, rewatch that and pause at any point, go for it. Okay, now I'm going to do one more example that's kind of like that. So let's do 2x squared minus 18y squared. Okay, so we're going to factor completely on this one. So what I do first here is I need to divide by what they have in common, which is a 2. So I pull a 2 out, and I get x squared minus 9y squared. Now I'm not done yet, because I see I can take the square root of each of these, and I have a difference of squares. So I can write 2, and then I have x and x, that's the square root of x squared. Then I have the 9 here, which is 3, right? The square root of 9 is 3. Square root of y is, or y squared is y, and it's a difference of squares, so one is plus and one is minus. And there is my final answer, okay? So if you need to watch that again, just make sure that you take the square root of these, and that's how you know when you have a difference of squares and when you're done with that. To me, the ones that are actually a little harder are the ones that are like this. 2x squared plus 9x minus 18, right? And this time we need to do our other method where we do what is A, okay, this is A, and this is C, so I do A, C. In this case is 36, okay, and I say the 36 here is going to have to equal something times 9. So I got 6 times 6, no, that's not going to equal something that's 9. I have 4 times 9, that's not going to equal something times 9, right? And then I have, what else could be equaling here? I have 2 and 18, right? That's not going to be 9. So I'm going to have to do a little trial and error on this guy, right? I'm going to have to do 2x on the front side, x on the back here, and I say, what is going to give me 2 times something? It's going to give me this b, which is positive 9, okay? So I know I'm going to have something times something that's going to give me a bigger number, right? So I have 6 and 6. It looks like that's going to have to be what I do right here. This 6 is going to be what I choose. So I do a 6 here, and you see that this is going to be a total of 12x. Now, when the other thing that's left here to get to 18, so I don't know why I have this 36 here, to get to 18 is 6 and 3. So I need this 3 here, and this one is a positive because it's a plus 12x, and this one is a negative. And I can just use that by trial and error to figure that one out, okay? So not too bad. That one I would use trial and error. Sometimes that's what the best way to solve it is to use that. Okay, now to the other part of our lesson, which is grouping. Okay, so if you're with me still, this is example 3 on that page. This is 2xy minus 7x plus 10y minus 35, okay? To factor by grouping, I just group the front 2 and the back 2, okay, like that. So now I rewrite this as 2xy minus 7x, and I say, what do they have in common that I can pull out? Well, they have an x. So I pull this x out, and I'm left with 2y minus 7. Now I come over here to this guy and say, what do those have in common? They have a 5 in common. So I pull out the 5, and I get 2y minus 7. Now again, this is our other lesson. We take what's in the parentheses together and write them as a combined answer, and circle what's outside of the parentheses and put them together for our final answer of x plus 5 times 2y minus 7. And that right there is how we solve by grouping. So very similar to how we solved by grouping before. It's the same exact concept. So let's do another one by grouping, and then I will let you get to the homework here. So let's say we have ax minus cx plus AY minus CY. Okay, again, I can solve this by grouping, by just grouping these two and these two. Now I say, what do these have in common? Well, they have an x in common, so I take out the x and I'm left with A minus C, like that. Then I say, what do these have in common? They have a y in common, so I have plus y, and I take that out, and I have A minus C. Now again, I know I did it correctly because I have the A and the C, and the A and the C, and I have the y and the x, so all I do to write my answer is take this x and this y, and do x plus y, and then I'm left with A and C, and so I do A minus C, and there's my final answer, x plus y, and A minus C. Okay, so let me do another one because I feel like that one example that I did was probably not the most helpful. So let's say that it looks something like, I need a better example than the one that I used before. So let's try this one right here. This is actually one of your homework problems. Okay, this is number 2 in the homework. Okay, so we have x cubed minus 2x squared plus x. Now again, the first thing I always look is to what can I factor out of this problem. Well, I see that each of them have an x, so I can take out an x from each of them, and look what I'm left with here. Now I'm left with a trinomial, which I can make into a binomial, okay, by just splitting this up and using my factoring ability here. What times what is 1? Well, I know it's got to be 1. I look at this sign, it's a positive, so the signs have to be the same, and this sign's a negative, so they're both negative. And that's my final answer right there. I can rewrite this guy as x times x minus 1 squared. Okay, so everybody should get number 2 right on the homework. Okay, well, here is the homework. Speaking of homework, we are on page 426, and we are going to be doing only numbers 1 through 14 all. Okay, this is on 10.5. This is part 1. We're going to do part 2 tomorrow, 1 through 14 all. Okay, let me know if you have any questions on how to do any of those. I hope you're doing well. Mr. H is over and out.